off. Okay, so our first matter of business, I believe, is to turn it over to Denise for her budget presentation. Please.
Okay. I am going to get it set up, so just a second, please. Everybody can see okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Look, I did something right. Okay, so welcome to the second presentation of the superintendent's proposed budget. We're going to review this evening the appropriations and revenues. So the agenda for tonight, we're going to do the budget appropriation assumptions. We're going to do an overview of the 21-22 budget. The appropriations of the proposed expenditures, we're going to look at central office, teaching, special ed, athletics, employee fringe benefits. We'll discuss any state aid updates and then finally the important budget dates. As of today, we have not received any new resignations, and I have not received any requests for additional staffing. So the mantra of the district has been to challenge, engage, and empower. And it seems to be working because our students are doing wonderful things from pre-K on up to graduation when they get out, when they graduate their senior year. So before I start with this slide, we did have a change to our revenue budget. I have to commend Mrs. Brand and Mrs. Haberman and their staff on the presentation with the Garrison students. The current 8th grade class at Garrison sits at 19 students. Out of those 19 students, we're getting 14 of them, where I only budgeted for 6. So the kids were very impressed after they came to our school district to see James I. O'Neill High School. So thank you. And with that, I will explain what I did to the budget and the information I shared with you with the new revenue budget. So the estimated working budget still stands at $34,448,586. And again, as a reminder, the budget to budget increase is $1,196,864. The approved budget provides authority to spend, but not to exceed the budget of the $34 million. The maximum allowable tax levy increase is 1.22%. Now, if you remember from last week, we had the assigned fund balance at $500,000. We decreased that to $355,000 because we received an increase in the non-property tax revenue by the $145,000 because of the money we're going to be getting from Garrison. So again, we are still in balance on our budget. Again, the estimated tax rate increase is 1.22%. The assessment changes, we're not going to know those because they're still unknown. So how's the revenue changed? So currently now, the increase to non-property tax revenue was $1.2 million. The increase to the property tax levy is $137,989. That's a 1.22% increase. And we decreased the use of the fund balance to by $145,000. So you'll see that the 1.196,864 equals the increase in the budget. So we'll look at some of the drivers in the budget. So salaries for the for next year is estimated at $236,000. If you remember last year, we discussed with operation and maintenance, we put $130,000 in to purchase a couple of vehicles because we need to get the O&M vehicles on a replacement schedule. Computer assisted instruction is $88,095. Social Security goes up because as salaries go up, of course that goes up. That's $19,471. Health insurance, you'll wonder if it's $210,000. And if you recall, I stated that the number, the rates are pretty much flat. We didn't get an increase, but the problem is as we have people retiring and people are reaching the age of 65, you have Medicare reimbursement that's been going up over the past couple of years. So that's an increase of why the health insurance is going up, because you have Medicare reimbursements that we obligated to pay back to the people that are 65 and older. The bond anticipation note, because we are going to go, the band right now is going to be bonded in June, and that's an estimated $417,000 increase from the current year. And this way, with the bond anticipation note, This is keeping it's keeping the numbers flat, so there's no increase to the taxes, as we told the taxpayers when we were doing the capital project. And the good thing is I've seen some numbers, and the rates on the bonds are still under 1%. So we have a very good rating. So my fingers are crossed in June that we're going to be below 0.5. My fingers are crossed, and that will put the district in a good spot. Budget distribution, we look at the support, which is the Board of Education, Central Office Administration, Business Office, Audit, Legal, BOCES, Administration, Insurance, Central Services, which is printing and data processing. The buildings and grounds, operation and maintenance, then that's the preservation of the district facilities and the assets. Instruction, which is our teachers, special education, textbooks, instructional supplies, instructional technology, equipment, guidance, health, art, athletics, and co-curricular. The transportation is the contract transportation and expenses for the transportation office. Undistributed is the employer retirement contributions, which is ERS and TRS. You have your FICA, Medicare, Social Security, health insurance, unemployment insurance, workers' comp. Then you got the capital and debt service, which is your capital expenditures and debt service, energy performance contracts, bond anticipation notes. And then your other is your transfer to special aid fund. And that is the 80% that we have to pay back, the general fund owes to the special aid fund for the Sun and Wind account. So I like to show this pie chart to show how the budget is the distribution by function. So you'll see buildings and grounds is 7.2%, support is 3.9, other is 0.2, capital and debt is 5.6, the undistributed is 19.9, transportation is 7.8, special ed is 19%, and instruction is 36.4% of the budget. So to make it easier, I also show it into a chart where we compare it from the 2021 school year to next year. And as you can see, the numbers, the percents are very close. You'll see a little bit of a decrease in special ed. You'll see a little bit of a decrease in instruction. We had a couple teachers retire so that's going to take your instruction from the 36.87 to 36.42. Special ed, we had a little bit of a shift in where the monies are actually going, if they're not necessarily in tuition for out of district, but they're going to BOCES. Transportation, it's gone down a little bit. Jay is working very hard with the district to help save we're sharing runs with other districts, trying to combine runs. I don't know if anybody has any questions if they reviewed this, but we could go through that also after the presentation. So if we look at the first section, which is the Board of Education, Board Clerk, District Meeting, and the Chief School Administrator, this is, there's a budget change of a decrease in budget of $461 or a negative 0.126%. Dr. Shibo and I tried to be very mindful when we were doing our budgets to keep, as we asked for everybody else for a decrease in budget, we made sure we did the same thing. So you see the proposed salaries is down $811, purchase services is down $250, OC services is up by $600. Then we'll look at the business office, auditing, legal, personnel, and other. We've had a $10,965 increase from the current school year, 1.88%. And that's proposed salaries of $6,429. OC services is $4,336. Purchase services is $700 and a decrease in supplies of $500. Now for OC services, like for the business office, that's a lot of that is the Envision. That's our accounting and our payroll software. So those costs go up every year. So we have to make sure that we maintain that so that we can continue to do, to provide the service, make sure our employees are paid and we can pay our bills and et cetera on time. Next is operation and maintenance. It's the 1620, 1621, and 1625. Now 1625 is our security people. So there has not been a change with that because we left the budget as is. It's very hard because this year they haven't really been working. So there is a saving in the 2021 school year. So we left the money at $150,000 for the 3 buildings for next year. So there was an increase of $96,020 or 4.013% for O&M. So there's a salary increase of $40,083. The purchase services was decreased by $62,000. The equipment is $130,000, but again, those are for 2 vehicles, so we can start doing replacement of the current vehicles that we have because the useful life we're starting to hit that now. There's a decrease of supplies and material by $15,000, and the BOCES services is up by $3,300. So regular school appropriations are your 20 codes, your 21 codes, 2280, 2330, 2610, 2630, 2805, 2810, 2815, 2825, and 2850, which basically is your instruction, library, guidance, your psychologist, even your technology. So budget to budget change for that group is $266,155 or 2.284%. So there was an increase of $177,254 in salaries, and you can see purchase services, supplies and materials, and textbooks were decreased. BOCES services up because in there for BOCES services is where we have our career and tech students. So that's a big driver there. Plus some of the technology is in there because we want to make sure that we continue to have the one-on-one initiative that all students have their Chromebooks. So in the case of this current school year, our kids were in a good place that they were able to continue their education as we were working remotely. So then we come to special ed, and there's an increase of $195,569 or 3.087%. There's proposed salaries of $5,469. Purchase services is up by $6,700. Beth had brought this, excuse me, supplies and materials down by $900. Now, although the out-of-district tuition is down by $16,000, the BOCES tuition is up by $200,000 because there's been a shift in some of the students, because if they can't get placed out of district, then Beth has been placing them at BOCES. And that's going to be the best program for these students so that they can continue to see their education. And we've had a little bit of an uptick on students, and we're expecting a couple students from West Point of special needs students. So we want to make sure that's covered, and we still do have that $200,000 or $300,000 in the special ed budget as an emergency, just in case we get an influx next year, that they're covered so we don't have to hurt that budget at all, or the budget in general. I understand that's very, very important for the board that that's in there. Interscholastic athletics, there was a decrease of $15,441. There's a proposed salary increase of $3,000. And you'll see the purchase services, supplies, materials were down by $10,000 and $7,000. I've had some discussions with Debbie Crow about uniforms because this has been such a difficult year with the way sports ran. We have actually started ordering some of the uniforms that are needed just to make sure that they're in place so that the students have them when they're playing their games. So we try to be mindful of all that. Again, it was very tough because a lot of the places in the budget, it's very hard to take 10% from supplies and materials when they're already down to bare bones. But Debbie did a good job with that. Transportation, you'll see for the 21-22 school year, it's $2.7 million is the projected budget, where the current year is $2.6 million. It's a $17,689 increase, or 6.659%. The transportation costs are principally a function of out-of-district special ed placements, because we do have students going to BOCES. We have them going down to Rockland BOCES. We have them going down to Putnam, Northern Westchester, and districts within there. So again, Jay continues to work very hard with us to ensure that we try to either group kids together if they can, and we do still share transportation with Cornwall, so that is a good savings. And this current year will be year 4 of the 5-year contract extension. So, and Jay's been very kind with that also. So I'm sorry to remember, I think it's only 0.75% of CPI. And right now CPI is around 1.22% or 1.23%. So we won't know that exact number till May. So we get to the big part of the puzzle is our employee fringe benefits. So the Social Security and the Medicare is 7.65% of the payroll. The New York State retirement for the employees, we have the teachers' retirement, and we also have the employees' retirement. So teachers' retirement is budgeted at 10%, and the ERS is at 14%. So there was a slight decrease in both of those. So combined, there's almost a $70,000 savings there in just TRS and ERS, which was a positive for the district. Workers' comp, unemployment insurance falls under fringe benefits. We have left the unemployment where it was for the current school year, especially when we've had the furloughs. I honestly hope that when we hit July 1st, that we're going to be back to normal. Health insurance and the buyout stipends. So for the 21-22 school year, the premiums for a family plan for the Orange Ulster Health Plan is $29,424, and for the individuals, $12,792. And then we also have contractual payments for retiring employees, vacation and sick leave buybacks that all fall under the employee fringe benefits. So when you look at it as a whole, there was an increase of $159,793 or 2.393%. So again, you look at the TRS and ERS is approximately $70,000 decrease, an increase of Social Security by the $19,000 and of $210,535 on the health insurance. And I did reference them on the previous pages. So as of today, we still do not have any state aid updates. So we're still not sure where that's going. I have not heard much rumblings of what's going on. We do have a business official meeting tomorrow, so I may have an update next week. Again, as of today, our proposed revenues versus our proposed expenditures, we are in balance. There is no gap. And with that, we look at important budget dates. So right now, we do have a meeting scheduled for next week on the 18th. The next board meeting is on the 8th of April, and then April 15th is when I would like to have the adoption of the budget by the Board of Education. And once the board adopts the budget, by law, I have 24 hours to report the property tax report card that is due to SED. As a reminder, April 21st is the submission of petitions for the Board of Education candidates by 5 p.m. May 4th, I will have the budget available to the public at each school and at the library. May 6th will be the public budget hearing. And I think I'm gonna have to change this date because I'm worried about the mail, but on the 10th is when we usually mail out the budget notice to the public, but because of the mail, we may mail it out on the 7th, just to ensure that the taxpayers, they all can receive the budget notice so they can review it. And then on May 18th is the annual budget vote and the school board election. So at this time, if anybody has any questions, I would be happy to entertain you.
I do, Denise.
Okay.
I just wanted to know, can you tell me, do we have enough money for increases in special ed throughout the year on the transportation line and the regular line?
In special ed,
Yes.
I'm just looking at my pages, so I have my notebook sitting here with me.
Take your time. I just want to ensure.
Yeah, no. We have $300,000 in the special ed tuition line. That's what we call the tuition for the emergency. Yes. So there is money there. And I do also have,
Mhm.
I just want to see what particular we have. Because off the top,
There was a contingency line, that's it, in the transportation, we
correct,
can use
yes.
it for that?
Yep, and there's
Okay. Frank, shake
100,000,
it.
I just want to
Yes.
get the number
Okay.
correct. It was $100,000 there for emergency trips.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else have questions on the budget? Because this is great news. Go ahead. Gabe and Frank both have their hands up, so.
Okay, Denise, a couple things. The vehicles that are going to get replaced, are they basically end of life, or are they? Is there any value to those vehicles that are going to get replaced?
Frank, do you think there's any, there could be a value that we may be able to auction them off?
Right. We would try to get something for those, Gabe.
Okay.
We've got vehicles with, 80,000 hard miles of plowing, and that's the tough life on a vehicle like that. So
But
it's,
they're probably trucks, right?
yeah, they are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And they're,
Yeah.
they're almost 10 years.
Trucks hold their value pretty well.
Yeah, and they're
No,
almost
no,
10 years old.
Yeah. And we've had situations where even this year we were down a truck, or we were down to 2. Well, we have the red one out there. It's not running, and we've got the old Blazer that is not running. And it is, there were times, like I said, this year where we were down to just 2 plow vehicles. It was a challenge for us to keep up with some of those big storms. And as Denise and I were talking about the budget, we haven't had an equipment line, and it is just time for us to start thinking about replacement cycle and building that in, even if, even if it's every other year trying to replace an asset, just like we did with technology and built a system that, functioned well for us in an emergency. So,
Right.
Yeah.
What I would just say is that, if there is any value in them in terms of if they're still running to a decent extent, maybe it's worth it then to keep maybe one of them as a backup. You drive it every once in a while, keep it moving, so that if you do run into a situation where something down, or then you look at the value of trying to sell it or auction it off. But if you say that there was a time, obviously getting 2 new vehicles, you expect more reliability out of those vehicles.
and Gabe, to that point, what we had done previously is we had a vehicle that we used on a specific campus. You really couldn't take it on the road, but we were able to use it on a campus as a plow. Now it's sitting by the pole barn, not running, but we did get a couple extra serviceable years out of it on post or on campus. It just wasn't able to drive from campus to campus to campus. So, but yep, good point.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Another one, Denise. So on the transportation, do you know, maybe top of your head, or if you could get us the information as to what is the cost of regular transportation out of the entire transportation budget? Cost of regular transportation, percentage-wise, to out-of-district transportation?
I'll have to get those numbers.
Okay. And then the last thing that I had a question about was in the HFIS, it's listed under salaries. There's 112,000 for summer program, and just maybe Frank, you could, or Denise, explain a little bit about. I'm not real sure what that summer is.
As we're all aware, we anticipate that there is some learning loss associated with the last, almost year now. And in order to put together programs to support our students through some of that learning loss, we used to do the summer academy, and we would do it, for students to make up regents exams and things like that. But we know that we need a comprehensive K-12 look at that to make sure that we're backfilling those instructional needs. And even as some of the federal monies are being talked about, a certain part of that is destined to be earmarked for summer remedial support. We can't run a summer school. There's just really not enough time to do a summer school that is credited and all that. But we certainly can put together, tutorial programs to backfill our student needs pretty much on any and all grade levels that we need to.
Hey Frank, I don't mean to interrupt. Is that something, especially on the younger age level, that we could work with the summer program with the Town of Highlands Rec to integrate maybe some of that, coordinate some of that?
Yeah, as we've done in the past when we used some community partners instead of doing it with district, Aaron, we tried to coordinate time so that the kids weren't missing out on both the academic enrichment as well as the social piece from rec. So yeah, we will definitely coordinate, presuming that this is something that ends up in the final budget adopted by the board.
Awesome. Thank you.
Ned, you had a question?
Denise, you had mentioned early on in the presentation, I believe, categorized as nonprofit revenue. Could you explain, if you can identify that and explain it?
It was non-property revenue. It's not nonprofit, it's non-property revenue. Non-property, which is
Okay.
the tuition from Garrison, interest earnings, let's see, insurance recoveries, miscellaneous revenue, refund of prior year's expense, refund of both from prior year's expense.
Yeah.
That's what the non-revenue, the non-property revenue consists of.
I saw it.
You're
Thank you. What's the status of the transportation for those two students that were going to the Goshen private school?
That was ended in before the second semester
Thank you.
in January. It was ended. You're welcome.
Are there any other questions on the budget? Okay, Denise, I think everyone on this call did a great job with that. We're in great shape. We'll be ready to adopt any changes. I know you'll get back to us if anything new comes in, any drastic changes. So this is great news. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And then,
You ready?
And could I just give the board real quick update before we do the consent agenda? Yeah, so as we had
Please do
mentioned
that,
to the
yes.
board previously, and also to the community who are tuning in, we had made a request to get some dispensation or some relief from the 6-foot social distance requirement if we were to implement polycarbonate barriers. While I will express my dismay on certain departments at the state level and county level, I will say that we did get approval for our plan to move ahead with 4 foot with 4 foot with polycarbonate barriers for our students, and we are going to continue in our preparations for that. We will be bringing back our K-5 students 5 days a week already. We had planned that. We are anticipating bringing back, presuming we can get all the polycarbonate barriers that we need, our K-8 students actually 5 days a week, hopefully right after spring recess on around April 6th. And then bringing back more of our high school students. So that was a really, really huge piece of information to get, and really happy to work with all of our partners and now give it to the principals to do more work. But they accept that they want our kids back too, as much as I do. So I just wanted to share that with the board and to anybody who happens to be listening today.
yeah, that's great news. Thank you for sharing that. Yes. Okay, thank you. Denise?
Okay. Use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following consent agenda as submitted by the Superintendent of Schools. It's number 2 to number 5.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Are there any questions?
I have some questions or comment. On number 3, concerning the approval of capital reserve fund in the amount up to $9 million over a period of 12 years. think that having that time as the budget vote at the same time raises a possibility and a concern that it would have a negative effect on the budget vote. So
Well, that's our job, Ned.
I just raised
Yeah,
that.
that's our job when we go out on our road shows, to make sure that the community understands. We've talked about it at a couple of previous board meetings, but we'll have to make sure we continue to speak of it and explain the purpose of it, because it's very important for us to be able to keep up with the upkeep of our other buildings. I don't know if anyone else has a comment on it.
We can present it as that it's a savings for future renovations of the buildings.
That I understand.
Okay.
Second comment, I tried on my iPad to get the work history or the background on Mr. Mcginnis, and I was not able to do it. Could you briefly summarize the background and what he's been doing up until now?
So do you mean you were asking
Work
about
back- work-
his work background? All right, go ahead, Frank. Do you want to do that, or do you want me to do that? Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, I don't mind doing it, Ann, if that's okay. So Jim has extensive experience in the field of project management through multiple, organizations and businesses. His career has been spent, working in the field, in the trades, and managing people and directing large-scale projects. He's done that oversight and led, teams. And that's really what we're looking for this interim. He's been a project manager, safety manager, came up project coordinator, site supervisor, would be sometimes brought in to take over a site while somebody was not there, they were out, and you have to pick up those pieces and lead those things. And as he's got a lot of the pieces that we need for the short period of time. So, yep.
Is he
Ned, he's
interested?
also local.
Pardon me?
Yeah,
I was just saying that because if you didn't see his resume, you might not also know that he's local.
Thank you. Is he interested in taking the civil service exam?
Yeah,
None
I
of
would
the
defer that
people-
question to executive
Yes,
session. if that's
executive
okay.
session. None of the people that, we interviewed were currently on the list, but that's an executive session discussion.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, would just like to point out that we have our number 5, Denise's retirement. We wish her the very best in her future endeavors. We're certainly going to miss her, and we'll make sure that we celebrate before the year is out. So thank you for that. So may I please get approval on the consent agenda 1 through 5?
Can we vote separately on number 3, please?
What numbers do you want to remove? Number 3?
Correct.
Okay. May I please get a motion to remove number 3 and vote on it separately?
Motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Gus was the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. May I please get approval on items 1, 2, 4, and 5? We already have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, approve capital fund reserve. May I please get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Gabe and Aaron? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Thank you. Ned is opposed. Okay. discussion. One of the board members has some questions for us. So Gabe, go ahead.
A couple of things. I've been up at the high school a lot, picking up at 5:30 from sporting, and every time I go up, there's people parked in the circle in the front of the building, and there's nobody in the vehicles. Usually it's 3 or 4 cars that are in that circle, and then there's usually a bus picking up at that time. I understand you're waiting and to pick up. I don't know how we address that in terms of, I don't know, our staff that's there or whatever, but it's causing problems and trying to get through with people with vehicles there with nobody in there. So I know it's a difficult time because there's not a lot of people. Just wanted to bring it to the attention. And the other thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about is an issue that I'm seeing. I've had multiple parents approach me in the past week, and it deals with kids in school learning, and then the possibility of having to quarantine. So I feel like a lot of kids are making this decision not to be in person because they don't want to have to quarantine if they get exposed for school. So what I'm hearing from a lot of parents is that their kids that are going are in classes with very few students right now, sometimes 1, 2, 3 students in the class. And the kids are not going because, you know what, if I don't go, I don't have to run the risk of having to quarantine because I was in class with someone. And then now I know I can play my athletics and do what I have to do. They're mitigating their risk. They're reducing their risk a lot so that they can play, which we understand, and they're taking a responsible viewpoint on that. But I believe, and I'd like to hear from Frank and high school is it hurting it seems to be hurting our numbers in terms of bringing kids into the building, which should be our ultimate goal.
Yeah, so okay, first off, great question. And I will say that I can't quantify how many people are in that boat. I know that there are some anecdotally. I will also say that I have been advocating for changes to the contact tracing requirements that have been imposed on the district. And I know that we keep hearing from our county that it's the same requirements for every county, yet other counties are doing it differently. And they are actually, when there's an exposure, doing a close contact as opposed to a contact list of all in a congregate setting. I can't quantify, but I know it's an issue. And if it's for even 1 or 2 kids, it's for 1 or 2 too many, if you ask me. But I'm going to continue to advocate for those changes. We have put in place systems to keep our kids safe. Everybody's wearing a mask. If you're in a classroom and you are 2 students removed, even with our 4 feet, if you think about it, even with our 4 feet, the next student so you got student 0, right? And the next student's 4 feet. Yeah, so that would be a quarantine, but your next student would be 8 feet. They wouldn't be quarantined, right? And it is something that we've been advocating for with the county health leadership team, and it's a frustration. I'll just admit it's a frustration.
Yeah, I would agree. One thing I'd like to just have maybe a little discussion about is that our policy in terms of, and I'll use my daughter who would like to be in school. However, she doesn't want to run that risk so that she can continue to do her athletics. However, the fall 2 ends April, I don't know the exact date, right? April
15th, whatever. Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, at that point, she does not do a spring activity. She'd like to come back then, but the way that our policy was set up is that now she can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? So here we are. We're at the end of tomorrow. We're 2 weeks into fall 2. We have 4 more weeks. For any kids that are in the fall 2 that don't do a spring, that are virtual because they don't want to run the risk of quarantining, don't then have the option to come back in for that last. It's almost a whole quarter, right? The third quarter ends about that time period. So that last quarter have the opportunity to come back in person because the way that we set it up with that March 8th start and the March 5th deadline. So I just wanted to know if we could have any discussion and maybe have some leeway on that to basically try and get more kids into the building.
So I certainly can take that back to the administrative team. I will tell you that, the reason we ask people to make a determination is that all of the systems, all the transportation, all of figuring out how many people fit in each room is not something that we can adjust, rather quickly. It's not. It's something that, that's why we went with 10 weeks as opposed to a semester, like many of our, neighboring schools went with a full semester for those that actually had a virtual option only. We certainly can take it back to the admin team to discuss. It is transportation being the greatest challenge, Gabe, as you can imagine, because we are limited to the number of students that we can put on any bus. And that's why, West Point Tour has been great working with us, being flexible with us. But I think I'm going to give Adeline a heart attack if we keep, but she's been a trooper, and everybody's a trooper doing their absolute best. But it's certainly something we can take back to the admin team.
All right. So in my situation, and I would say a pretty good handful of parents that I've talked to this week, they're in a situation where they made that decision. They decided to send their kids back. And so they registered for the in-person for this week. But now they're getting pushback from whether the kids about the quarantining, which I understand their point, that they don't want to miss out on that, and they can still continue with virtual instruction. So these are a lot of these kids are kids that have actually already signed up to be back in person, and now have made a decision to not attend at this moment. So they were
that's
probably
kind of,
accounted for.
Yeah, but again, that's kind of not really going by what it was set up for, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Like, it wasn't set up so athletes would stay at home and do virtual learning. Although I totally get it. I totally get it. But I think what we're saying is, and again, Frank could go back to the admin team and see, but so I think we'll have to see what comes out of it. I mean, what Gabe is saying is that there are, as I know everyone understands, there are people that just aren't coming right now. But again, I thought if you signed up for in person that you were supposed to do in person.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not doing in person, that's another problem because you signed up for it.
Well, I think maybe what Gabe is saying is some people after the various quarantines have, because you could move to virtual, you just can't go the other way.
But once you move to virtual, then you're off that bus list, and that's where the but where the concern comes in. I think we'll need, and I see people shaking their heads, I guess we'll need to go back to them and give them time to see what they can do for that.
Yeah,
I know if transportation was an issue, on my end, I would have no problem having to bring my kids to school if that's what it would take. But I think if we have the ability, we should definitely try to be flexible in terms of getting the kids back in. The community has been extremely flexible with us with keeping them home when we had to. So if we have the ability to do it, I do agree with Gabe. We should definitely try to do it.
If we can, because we already have all our bus routes set.
I'd be curious how many
It's already, because, and again, we have to work with our coaches, and I know you're already doing it. We have to try to convince these kids to come to school. They shouldn't be staying at home. Obviously, with the quarantine, they have to, right? But they shouldn't be staying at home so they don't have to, they don't get into that quarantine situation. It stinks, it really does. But that's why a lot of our testing is taking place and stuff like that. And I just don't want to give anyone the impression that we're advocating for kids to stay home so they can play athletics. I know that was brought up at a few meetings, and it isn't something at this time. Frank, what's your, I mean, going with the 4-foot rule that's going to be able to help us bring more kids back. Would that help at all with the bus situation? Because we're going to have to add buses anyway if more kids are coming back.
We already have the challenge of getting all those kids on the bus.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Because right now we have the hybrid where you've got 40% of O'Neill coming in on Monday, Tuesday, 40% of O'Neill coming in on Thursday, Friday. We're now talking 80% roughly, 75 give or take, coming in on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. There is not right now a plan to bring O'Neill back 5 days because of, as I mentioned last week, we moved the entire master schedule to accommodate for an 8-minute hall passing. And there is not, and we'll be very upfront, there will not be this year, but every 4 days we're going to get to that, and 5 days for every other grade level.
Okay.
Gabe, I guarantee you we'll toss it around, and to the extent that we can open the window again, I mean, we can try to open the window again.
Good.
No,
Okay, that's fair. I think that's very fair. Yeah.
I'd be curious as to how many athletes are in person compared to virtual. I know, Ann, we do not want that. We want the kids in. I think it's an unfortunate byproduct of the system is that the athletes, because it is their only chance, and even though they're short seasons, they're saying, you know what, this is my best chance to be able to play for the short season that I have is to do this. So that it's driving it, but it's not what we want.
And we do know too that there are going to be a decent number of spring athletes, right? That are going to want to play spring sports that might fall in. I don't know if they'll, what's the word? Take the place of, I don't want to complicate this, but I'm just saying if there's winter, you know what I mean? Fall too, that are going to go back because they're not playing, but there's new ones that are going to stop coming because they're playing. Maybe it'll even out. I don't know, but I think we need to let you guys look at it.
And it does beg the question because, as we begin our discussions, not only for, the next 12 weeks, right, what have you, 13 weeks, but also what happens after the rainbow when we hit September 1st, because, to give that option for virtual only without documentation means we are going to have 10 to 20% of our families that elect that. And there are districts that did not this year, and there are districts that are saying already in their meetings that that's not something that they're going to be affording for anybody who doesn't have medical documentation. And that is something that ultimately we, the administration, and you, the board, are going to have to wrangle with our reopening team. And we're going to start those meetings. I know Andrea's on the call, but I want to say it's not next week, but the week after. These are real good questions. But Gabe, I promise I'll take it to the team.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I have.
Anything else, Gabe?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Good.
Go ahead, Ned.
Apparently on that Orange County dashboard, town of Highlands now has 100 active cases. If it goes one more, are we in the red zone?
Ned, I don't honestly believe that the state is designating yellow, red, or orange anymore. I believe that they're trying to keep the world as open as possible. But it's hard to say what will be announced at a press conference tomorrow. So,
okay. I would ask the board in the district to consider formally asking Department of Health to provide some factual and medical basis and information to us so that our town might be able to take steps to help our population. Cornwall, who has a significantly greater population than we do, has approximately, according to their figures, about 45 active cases. We have 100 at least. Department of Health, my opinion, has a responsibility to try and identify what are the causing and driving factors so that perhaps they could be remediated. Merely putting numbers up on the board doesn't do anything to deal with the underlying problems. So if we could give a thought on that and raise it at the next meeting, I would appreciate it.
Now, I just want to be open and honest here, Ned. It's been,
That's what we're always doing.
clear. It's been
Right.
clear to me that it's very, very difficult at this time to get information and direction out of the Orange County Department of Health. We haven't been able to get responses to emails, and this is a fact. I'm not putting anybody down. I know how busy they are. We all know that. We have gone to many levels above that to try to get direction. So while I totally understand what you're saying, and if the board wants to be ready to discuss that at the next board meeting, we can go for that and give Frank a direction. But I just want to be open and honest here with everyone that it's probably going to be nearly impossible for us to get that answer. But we can certainly go for it, give it a shot. Right, Frank?
Absolutely. And I will say that, vaccine operations have consumed the department. So,
Yes, yes.
where they've been, so.
Mhm. Okay. Anything else? Gus?
Yes, I have a question in regards to when will there be light on the western field from Foremost? Is there any indication as to how long it's going to take to energize those light poles, or that's still out in the near future or distant future?
So the Debbie Crow Field should have lights soon, and that's the best answer I can give. I'd love to give more information on that. O&R is ready to switch over that transformer. So they are moving forward. And remember, it's not just the field, it's the lights in the front of the building, it's the pole barn. There's a lot of things that are connected to that. But I push that question pretty much every day, Gus.
Okay. And lastly, Gabe brought this up before, and it's noticeable. The lights are on in those two or the three parking lots. I assume that they're working on that problem, right?
They are working to address that because they have photo cells they should be shutting off. So it's got to be a wiring issue, but they are working on it.
They crossed the red and a blue wire. That's probably it, or a neutral.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate on that, but.
Anything else?
I got
Okay. Yes, Ned. Yes.
on the front page of the News of the Highlands today, the picture of the children, I believe at the intermediate school, getting off and greeting each other. No masks, does not appear. Too close proximity. We need to have guidance out there, making sure that children have the masks.
Go ahead, Mary
And the
Jane.
bus drivers have the mask.
Okay. Go ahead, Mary Jane.
That photo was from March 13th, 2020, Mr. Cobalt. It says that in the caption.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, our students and our bus drivers have been very compliant with all of what we've been asking them to do. They have been following everything we've asked since September, even though we weren't in place. And even as I walk through the schools, when you've got a little one and their mask is slipping down and you give them a gentle mask or something, point to their nose, they smile, they pick it right up. And in my travels through O'Neill and through the intermediate school, I've not seen a child without their mask, except during mealtime. And I am grateful that we've had such compliance with all of what we did. And that's why I almost freaked out when I heard about that newspaper photo. So thanks, Mary Jane, for clearing that up.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Executive session. Be it resolved that the Board of Education recesses into executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment history of a particular individual and to discuss collective negotiations under the Taylor Law with the Town of Highlands Teachers Association. The board will not return to open session to take action.
Motion.
Second.
Second, motion and a second. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Hold on, Mr. McElduff, you're going to hang out with us for a minute? Thank you. Okay. And I thank everybody for joining, and everyone stay well and stay safe. Bye. And